A free review copy for Demon's Tier Plus was provided to me by developer Diabolical Mind and publisher Cowcat. As I've stated before, I'm a bit of a fan of Xenon Valkyrie, and it definitely got me to keep an eye on this developer. Their latest release, Demon's Tier, is... a little bit of a disappointment. It's not bad, it's certainly better than Riddled Corpses, the game with way too much grinding, and I do see the direction that the developer was going in. It just wasn't quite fleshed out enough. The story of Demon's Tier tells of a resurrected evil king who's looking to raise an army of monsters from his underground castle and destroy the world. A party of adventurers have been hired to investigate a town where a sinkhole has opened up, which turns out to lead straight to the evil king's lair. The story cutscenes are very long and quite a bit text-heavy. The previous two Diabolical Mind games were kind of like this as well, but I don't remember it being this bad. I feel like they got a little carried away this time, but it's not necessarily terrible either. Demon's Tier once again showcases Diabolical Mind's signature pixel art style. It's kind of hard for me to explain why I like it so much. It doesn't look very professional, but something about it is really nice to me. I don't think this is his best work, like even the boss designs in Riddled Corpses were much cooler, but I still find his art style to be very enjoyable to look at. The dungeons also have a limited lighting system, which is kind of neat and certainly affects the gameplay. Your projectiles light the way a little bit, although I wish it would fade out rather than suddenly cutting back to darkness. There are, however, some major problems with the visuals that I'll get deeper into during the negatives. The music is very generic, there's not much to it here. To bring up Xenon Valkyrie again, that's the good stuff, dude. It's crazy to me that the same composer worked on all three of these games. This latest one isn't bad by any means, but I do think it's his weaker work. The gameplay is basically a dungeon crawler wrapped around a slower-paced twin-stick shooter. Each playable character has their own unique statistics and special abilities, such as the knight temporarily increasing his defense, the wizard gets an area of effect attack, and the assassin has gargantuan badonkadonks, I mean she gets a spread shot. Each character also gets what the game calls a dodge action, although it's more like a temporary shield that deflects projectiles. After clearing a floor of the dungeon, gold collected can be put towards upgrading stats. Investing at least the minimum into defenses, speed, and ranged attacks is important, but you're definitely gonna want to dump pretty much everything into attack power. The sooner an enemy dies, the better. Each time a boss is defeated, there's a chance to receive a blueprint for a new weapon, which can then be purchased back in town and is a tremendous upgrade for that character. There's a little bit of grinding initially, and it's basically impossible to beat the game on your first run, but with enough attempts, I'd say over the course of about 5 hours, the average player should be able to finally beat the game. There's also a time limit for each individual floor. If you take too long to find the exit, then the Grim Reaper will show up to end your game. Along with Death himself, the enemy roster is pretty average, but at least an attempt was made. I do like how some enemies will freak out and rapidly move in random directions when they start getting attacked. Enemies that reflector shots are also pretty cool, and there's the occasional exploding enemy. But aside from that, there's not really a whole lot. What's really disappointing are the boss fights. Diabolical Mind's games tend to have bosses that are a little hit or miss, but the collection this time is just lame. Aside from the final boss, they're all extremely easy and very simple. There's not a whole lot to see here, and it's very disappointing. Just in case you've been living under a rock for the past 5 or 10 years, it's now legally mandated that every video game needs to have some kind of Dark Souls-inspired mechanic. And this one is no different. Upon dying in a dungeon, all the player's currency that's used for permanent upgrades are left behind at a tombstone. If the player can then reach that tombstone without dying again, then all that currency will be recollected. But there's something odd about how it's implemented here. There's never any real reason why you would die in this game. At any time, the game can be paused and the magic rope item can be used to escape from the dungeon instantly. It doesn't matter if enemies are nearby, and hell, it can even be used during the final boss. The only time that the player might actually lose is if something snuck up on them, like these absolutely terrible spike traps. With all the chaos that's going on, it's very easy to miss these faint dots on the floor. And if several of them are packed closer together, then it can mean instant death before you even realize what's going on. The Charred Caverns also has this awful fire effect that makes it very difficult to tell what's going on. This dungeon is the worst part of the game just for this visual effect. I don't know what the developer was thinking here. That's the thing about this game. I find the main difficulty comes from obscuring the battlefield and doing some dumb distractions. It's not challenging, it's just really annoying. Eventually, you get used to it, and considering that a single successful run can be completed in about 40 minutes, once you know what you're doing, it's not so bad. But I really wish I had a clearer view of the battlefield. Of course, it wouldn't be a Diabolical Mind game without some needless grinding, so let me save you some trouble. Unlock the Cleric right away. Her ability to heal herself is incredibly useful and will easily get you through the whole game. Get as far as you can and escape the dungeon if you don't think you'll make it. Buy the strongest weapon available for her and get some potions if you need them. Once you beat the game once, you'll unlock the Valkyrie. And just like that, the game has now become a joke. The Valkyrie is insanely broken and can now easily beat the next two difficulties without even trying. Seriously, I got the Platinum Trophy for this game in about 7 hours. It's an okay game, it was pretty enjoyable, but there's not really too much to it. Probably the game's biggest flaw, aside from how short the game is or the obtrusive visual effects, is that the game starts off so slow. Once you get to the later levels and the higher difficulties, then it starts getting pretty crazy and exciting. But the initial couple of hours are quite a bit of a drag. If you do get into it, then I think it can be both fun and pretty challenging to beat on the highest difficulties with every character. And the game can be played in co-op once you earn enough currency to unlock at least a second character. So it's kind of cool, it's an alright game, especially considering that it's like $10. You can do a whole lot worse, that's for sure. But there's still a few questionable design decisions, and the positives don't last that long anyway. So if you don't think this game's for you, then don't worry about it, you're not really missing out on much. Thanks for watching my review on Demon's Tier Plus.